So what are dividend stocks?
Dividend stocks are stocks that pay a portion of the company's profits to the shareholders in the form of a dividend. These dividends can be paid out on a regular basis, monthly, quarterly, or annually.
How can I invest in dividend stocks?
To invest in dividend stocks, you can purchase shares of a dividend-paying company through a brokerage or trading account, or through a mutual fund or exchange-traded fund ETF that specializes in dividend-paying stock.
How do you know which dividend stocks to invest in?
When choosing dividend stocks to invest in, it's important to research the company's financial stability and its track record of paying dividends. You should also consider the company's industry, growth potential, and the current market conditions.
Can dividend stocks be a risky investment?
Like any investment, dividend stocks come with a level of risk. The company's financial stability and the ability to continue paying dividends may be impacted by current market conditions, competition, or internal factors. It's important to diversify your portfolio and conduct thorough research before investing in any dividend stock.
Are the dividend payments I receive taxed?
Dividends are typically taxed at the same rate as your regular income. However, if you hold your dividend-paying stocks in a tax-advantaged account, such as a 401k or IRA, the dividends may not be subject to taxes. Please be sure to consult with your tax or financial consultant.
Are dividend stocks a good investment?
Dividend stocks can be a good investment for those that are looking for a steady stream of income. However, they may not offer the same growth potential as non-dividend paying stocks. It's important to consider your investment goals and risk tolerance before deciding to invest in dividend stock.
Why do companies pay dividends?
Companies that are doing well may decide to share the profits with the owners and people that support the company itself, and so those are the shareholders.
Do all companies pay dividends to their stock shareholders?
No, not all companies pay dividends. It depends upon the management of the company and the board of directors. Additionally, the company needs to be profitable in order to be able to share some of those monies with the shareholders.
So when does a company pay dividends to its shareholders?
Now, I mentioned earlier that they could be paid on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis, but additionally, you'll see something called an ex-dividend date. This is the date voted on by the board of directors when the owners of record of those shares will receive the dividend payments. Here's a quick and simple method for finding the ex-dividend date for a stock that you're interested in. Simply visit Yahoo Finance and then enter the stock symbol. So for example, if I'm looking at Bristol Myers, I'm going to enter the symbol BMY. And then here on the summary page, I'm going to see a field labeled ex-dividend date. And you can see here the date is January 5th, 2023. So on this date, if I'm currently the owner of record, if I hold these shares on this date, that means I will qualify for receiving the dividend payment that the Bristol Myers Company makes to the shareholders.
How do I get paid the dividends? Do I need to submit a request or withdraw funds from someplace?
Dividends will be distributed to the shareholders either by check or deposited directly in your brokerage and trading account.
Is there a way for me to look at the dividend payment history?
Let me show you how to check the dividend payment history by jumping over to Yahoo Finance. Let's go take a look. First thing to do is open a web browser and visit Yahoo Finance. The URL is finance.yahoo.com. Next, you'll input the stock symbol you're interested in. So for example, if we're looking at shares of Apple and we want to see the dividend history, we'll type in the stock symbol AAPL, then move to the menu bar for the Apple stock and click on Historical Data. Next, click on the middle Historical Prices and select Dividends Only. And at this point, you can select the time period that you're interested in. So currently it's set for 1 year, or I can specify a different time period. Typically, I like to look at 1 year and 5 years. But let's just do 1 year for now. And now I press the Apply button. And here we can see the dividend payments that Apple stock has paid over the past year. Here are the dates, as well as the dividend amounts.
When is the best time to sell a cash secure put if I'm using a dividend paying stock as the underlying security?
One of the keys when selling a cash secure put is to pick an expiration that occurs just before the ex-dividend date. That way, if you get assigned the shares, you'll be the owner of record and you will receive the benefits of the dividend distribution.
I currently hold shares of a dividend paying stock that I want to use to sell a covered call. When's the best time for me to sell that covered call if I'm using my dividend shares?
If you currently hold dividend paying stocks and you want to use them to sell a covered call, be sure to pick an expiration date that occurs just after the ex-dividend date. That way, if your shares get assigned, you will have received the latest dividend payment because you'll still be the owner on the ex-dividend date. Do you want to see my dividend investment portfolio? It's super simple. Just join my Patreon membership and you'll get access to my Discord channel that opens in the first quarter of next year. You'll get access to my dividend portfolio, my stock watch list, details about my featured trades, and notifications about stocks, opportunities. Plus, I'm also offering a Q&A channel with direct access to me, so you can ask your questions and I'll supply the answers. It's all coming to you in the first quarter of next year. So be sure to check it out at patreon.com/simpleoptiontrading.
Are dividend stocks a good investment as part of a retirement portfolio?
Dividend stocks can be a good option for retirement because they can provide a steady stream of income that can help meet your financial needs during retirement. These dividends can be paid out on a regular basis, such as monthly, quarterly, or annually, and used to supplement your other income sources. But there's a few things you need to consider before deciding whether or not dividend stocks are perfect for your retirement portfolio. First, you want to check the dividend yield. Is it going to be high enough to justify the cost of investing in a dividend stock? In a lot of cases, even though the stock pays a dividend, it may be more worthwhile or advantageous and profitable to just involve in a regular index fund. Something like an S&P 500, say the SPDR ETF, stock symbol SPY, or QQQ, which is the ETF that tracks the NASDAQ. Let's go back to Yahoo Finance and take a look at the Coca-Cola Company, stock symbol KO. And let me show you where you can find the dividend payment and yield percentage. So on the summary page for Coca-Cola, you can see the section labeled for dividend and yield. This first number, 1.76, is the dollar amount, $1.76, that Coca-Cola Company paid over the past year. And inside the parentheses, 2.76%. That's what the dollar amount represents relative to the current stock price. So for Coca-Cola, which is currently trading at $64.21, it pays an annual dividend yield of $1.76, or in other words, 2.76%. You also want to look at the dividend growth potential. Now, if a company is doing well and paying dividends and their revenue is increasing over time, you'd also like to see that the dividend rate also increases over time as well. Because as you know, as the cost of living increases, you're going to need some income to keep pace with that rate of inflation. And then the third tip to consider is diversification. Now, there may be some dividend stocks that you're looking at that are in a particular sector, but make sure you diversify and get a broad range of dividend paying stocks so you don't focus on just one sector, because what happens if that sector realizes a downturn? Well, then all those dividend stocks may stop paying those dividends if they're not profitable.
Are dividend stocks good to invest in during a recession?
Well, it really depends upon the dividend stock and the economic conditions of the recession itself. Some dividend stocks may perform well during a recession due to their stability and the fact that the industry or sector that they're in isn't negatively affected by the recession conditions themselves. On the other hand, a recession could be detrimental to some companies and their profits down or actually eliminated, in which case the dividend payment associated with those companies would probably go to zero. So in that case, you may stop receiving those dividends because the company no longer is profitable during those recessionary times.
What dividend stocks pay the highest annual yield? Shouldn't I just put all my money into those stocks?
I get this question a lot. Why not just invest in those dividend paying stocks that have the highest yield? Well, there's multiple reasons why you don't want to do this. Let's consider the fact that when a company pays dividends, they're actually taking profit from the company and distributing it to the shareholders. This means that the company's bottom line is reduced and will be reflected in the share, and is typically reflected in the share price. So if a company were to pay dividends of, say, 50 cents per share for the shareholder, you'll notice that the share price also drops accordingly, 50 cents per share. Which makes sense, right? Because the value of the company is being distributed to the shareholders and that value is no longer held by the company, well then the share price should reflect that distribution as well. Now the companies that pay extremely high or unusual dividends, it's extremely attractive. But a lot of times a company is doing that as a way to manipulate the market. And what do I mean by that? They're trying to attract buyers to become shareholders. And so by offering high dividend yields, new and beginning investors who don't understand the consequences of those high dividends may get sucked in and actually purchase those shares, not realizing though that the value of the company is decremented in accordance with those dividends being paid. In other words, the company's trying to raise money, so they offer these attractive dividends to bring in buyers, but the bottom line is the company might be struggling just to survive. And so this could be a last-ditch effort for the company to struggle to stay alive.
Are dividend stocks considered passive income?
Yes, they are. Dividend stocks are considered passive income because they generate an income for the investor without requiring any additional effort or activity on their part. The dividends are paid out by the company to its shareholders on a regular basis, and the investor simply receives the income without having to do anything else but own the stock.
Is the dividend yield that a company pays to its shareholders always a fixed amount, or can it change?
Most definitely, yes. A lot of investors need to understand that when a company pays a dividend, it's based upon the profits at that company and the decision by the board of directors to pay a dividend out. Now, ideally, a company's dividend payments would increase over time as the company becomes more successful and acquires more and more profit. But that's not always the case. During some periods, the company may be less profitable or maybe even break even or actually lose money, in which case a company typically would not pay dividend. And as a result, the annual dividend yield would also fluctuate and drop as well. But by the same token, if a company does extremely well and the profits generated increase exponentially, the dividend payments may also reflect that, and you'll see rapid jumps and increases in the dividend payments to the shareholders.